If you were born as a Viking, when you took your very first breath, you weren't surrounded by doctors or a hospital room. Instead, you were born inside a small village house. Actually, calling it a house might be generous. Wooden walls, a door made of animal hide, a fire burning in the center of the room, and your mother's screams, because being born in Scandinavia around 850 AD was a struggle from the very beginning. But I have some bad news. Life selected hard mode for you before you even opened your eyes. Many Viking children never reached the age of 5. Disease, famine, wild animals, and one more thing, your father's decision. Yes, you heard that correctly. In some Norse traditions, the father would inspect a newborn child and decide whether the family would raise it, if the baby was extremely weak, severely ill, or if the family simply could not support another child, the infant could be abandoned outside. This practice was known as utburder, and on a freezing Scandinavian night, a baby left outside had little chance of survival. But you're lucky, your father picked you up and accepted you into the family. Until the age of 2, your mother carried you everywhere, tied securely to her back with a piece of cloth, to the fields, to the forest, to the river, because life never stopped. In Viking society, rest was a luxury, and almost nobody could afford it. By the time you turned 5, people considered you grown enough to help. Growing up meant something different in the Viking world. Now you would chop wood, feed animals, catch fish. Having small hands wasn't a disadvantage. It was useful. Your fingers could work through tangled fishing nets more easily than anyone else's. Most of your life revolved around the family's longhouse. The longhouse was exactly what it sounds like, a large building where the entire family lived under one roof. And not just the family, the animals lived there too. Their body heat helped keep the house warm during the brutal Scandinavian winters. Yes, you slept under the same roof as cows, and nobody apologized for it. At the age of 7, your education began, but not in a classroom. Viking children didn't go to school. Your father taught you how to hold a sword, carve wood, and handle the oars of a ship. Your mother taught you how to spin wool, tan leather, and preserve food with salt. You might also learn the runic alphabet. That was a privilege. Not everyone could read or write. In fact, literacy was sometimes viewed as something close to magic. Runes weren't only carved into stones, they appeared on sword hilts, bones, door frames, and tools. Many people believed these symbols carried special powers. By the age of 10, your combat training began, first with a wooden sword, then with a real one. Being a Viking warrior wasn't something you were born as, it was something you earned. You learned how to hold a shield, how to read an opponent's movements, how to control your breathing during combat. But fighting wasn't just a skill, it was part of your identity. A successful warrior earned respect, more treasure, more fame, more opportunities. Even if you didn't want to fight, society expected you to be strong. At 13, you sailed across the sea for the first time, and it wasn't romantic. Viking longships looked impressive, but life aboard them was cold, wet, and miserable. Do you get seasick? Too bad. Keep rowing. Hungry? Keep rowing. The sooner you row, the sooner you arrive. Meals consisted of dried fish, preserved meat, hard bread, and fermented dairy products. Luxury was not included. Your first voyage took you to the coast of England. Lindisfarne. The raid on Lindisfarne is one of the most famous Viking attacks in history. Today it's often described as a massive invasion. In reality, it was more likely a fast raid carried out by a relatively small group of warriors searching for wealth. Inside the monastery were defenseless monks, gold, valuable treasures, and very little resistance. The loot was divided. Part went to the leader. The rest was shared among the warriors. But let's pause for a moment. Calling Vikings simply barbarians doesn't tell the whole story, because some of these same people explored Iceland, settled Greenland, and reached North America nearly 5 centuries before Christopher Columbus. These journeys led to a place known as Vinland. The Viking settlement at L'Anse aux Meadows still exists in Canada today. The same people who raided monasteries were also among history's greatest explorers. At 15, you witnessed your first major battle, and you survived. That was no small achievement. War, disease, infections, shipwrecks, all of them killed countless Vikings long before old age. Medicine existed, but it was complicated. Viking healers used some surprisingly unusual techniques. One of them was known as the onion test. A wounded patient would drink an onion-based mixture. Then the healer would smell the wound. If the scent of onions could be detected, it was believed that internal organs had been damaged. It sounds strange today, but for its time, it was considered advanced medical knowledge. By 18, you were a full warrior. You had a place in society. Viking society followed a strict hierarchy. At the top were the jarls, the nobles. In the middle were the carls, free farmers and craftsmen. At the bottom were the thralls, the slaves. You were born a carl. Advancing upward required courage, success, reputation, and wealth. With enough skill, determination, and luck, even a carl could become a jarl, though being both smart and lucky certainly helped. At 21, it was time to marry. Viking marriages were usually alliances between families rather than romantic fairy tales. Negotiations took place. The bride's family provided a dowry. The groom's family provided a payment known as the munder. This wasn't a purchase. It was an agreement that protected the woman's rights and social standing. Surprisingly, Viking women enjoyed significant freedoms compared to many other societies of the medieval world. They could own property, request divorce, and manage the household while their husbands were away. In many cases, the woman at home was effectively running the entire operation. By 25, you had children, a small farm, a few animals, and a boat. This was your wealth. The winters were long and unforgiving. Food storage became an art form. Salted fish, dried meat, fermented dairy products. During the summers, you traded and traveled. During the winters, you sat beside the family fire, and stories filled the darkness. This was one of the least understood parts of Viking culture. The Vikings had great poets. They were known as skalds. They composed epic poems and preserved legends, the Eddas, the sagas, the stories of Thor and Odin, the prophecy of Ragnarok, Yggdrasil, and the Nine Realms. These tales were passed from generation to generation through oral tradition. People who dismiss Vikings as simple barbarians often overlook the richness of these stories. By the age of 30, you were already considered old by many standards. Gray hairs appeared, your joints hurt. Years spent in freezing water and harsh weather had taken their toll, but you were experienced. You had survived voyages, endured winters, raised children. That mattered. People listened to elders. You attended the Thing, the Viking public assembly. Important decisions were discussed there. Disputes were settled there. Free men could speak and be heard. One night, you sit beside the fire inside your longhouse. Outside, the Scandinavian wind howls through the darkness. Your children are asleep. Your wife is spinning wool. Your hands are covered in scars. Your body carries the marks of a lifetime. You don't know what tomorrow will bring. Maybe one more voyage. Maybe your last. But tonight, you're here. You feel the warmth of the fire. You feel the weight of your story. And perhaps, the road to Valhalla passes through moments exactly like this. Sleep well.